is truly an honor and privilege for me to participate with you this morning in the World Digital Mining Summit here in beautiful Dubai. I trust everybody is enjoying their trip and the festivities last night and a wonderful day of tremendous speakers that are extremely knowledgeable in this new field that we're all participating in. I'd like to take just a moment to thank Bitmain for sponsoring this and certainly extending me an invitation to come and speak with you today, but to also listen to the different speakers and many different groups that I've had the chance to sit with, either through dinner or a cup of coffee. So one of the most exciting things about this industry is the fact that just as soon as you think you know a lot about it, you're one conversation away of realizing how quickly it changes. Before I begin, I would like to say that I'm going to touch on a lot of topics that deserve obviously more time than I'll be able to devote to them today. A lot of them are complicated and they've got much more difficult answers than what I'll be able to provide. So I want to say to you that there's something that we do talk about that you have further questions. Please contact me or Wes Hamilton while we're here. We'll be happy to sit down with you and take the time to make sure you're comfortable with anything that we discuss while we're here. So with that said, let's get underway and start talking about renewables, politics, and all the things that make crypto mining as exciting as it is. Throughout my political career, which started in 1993, I've found that most people are not particularly fond or they have a great amount of trust for their government officials. There is an old joke back in Kentucky that goes like this. If an old brown Ford LTD pulls up out in front of your house in the driveway, and two men jump out and say, hello, we're from the government, we're here to help, you're probably in trouble. And I say that because a lot of times government interventions, they're not the best of business partners. They're not really good as far as deploying. They don't have the same values a lot of the people do as far as private investment goes. And I will tell you that I often feel like less government is a much more effective solution than more. So I will say this, that I have made my career on keeping my word and being accessible to people. So I can say to you today that I am from the government. I am here representing the state of Kentucky, the Commonwealth, and I really am here to help. I believe in this industry. I think the capabilities, the promise is just getting started. And I look forward to going on this journey with you together. So why am I here? A little over 5 years ago, on a very, very long flight home, not quite as long as the one over here.
Oh, yeah.
I had no cell phone service, so I was forced to do something quite terrible. That's actually read the magazine, but I almost forgot what to do. And so while I was reading this article, it was about a company that I was very familiar with. It was making a product in the United States for almost 80 years. And they decided suddenly they were no longer going to make this product. They were going to double down on blockchain. I had not really looked into blockchain, but I did know what Bitcoin was. That was listed in the article. And it began to talk about how these two were connected. One had to operate on the other. This is really my first foray into understanding how it works. And so by the time I got off that plane, headed home, I was really fascinated about the opportunity. Let me tell you why. As I was sitting on that flight, flying back from an economic development conference, my role in the state of Kentucky is I'm chairman of natural resources. That means everything from mud wrestling to quarries to coal mines, anything that's severed in the timber industry, all falls underneath my jurisdiction. It all comes across my desk. The particular district that I represent in Kentucky is in Appalachia, the coal fields, where mining has been a part of not only our history, but of our culture. And so at this time on that plane that day, we were having a tremendous fallout from overreach and overburden from the federal government and the coal mining industry. We had had coal companies that had been around my entire life and paid men and women between $75,000 and $109,000 a year to work there in Appalachia, had vanished overnight. You had thousands of people that were displaced, facing an incredible situation of being in Appalachia without a job. And the families that could leave were able to get out of there. And they loaded up their cars and they headed toward Lexington, Louisville, Nashville, Charleston, South Carolina. They headed to where they could find jobs. But for those that couldn't, they were forced to move back in with their family, their mother and father and grandparents. They stood by and watched the homes that they had built be repossessed. They watched their cars and trucks, and mobile homes and other things that they had accumulated all be repossessed and taken from them. And I will tell you, it's very, very depressing to see this at home and see these coal mines idle down with so many people displaced. At this time, I'll never forget, there was an article that came out on NPR, and the purpose of the article was a story that claimed that the highest rate of homelessness among children in America was in Appalachia. And I was fascinated, so I called them to ask them, where did you get this data? And the data was based upon whether or not you laid in at night, if you were sleeping under a roof that your family owned. So if you moved in with your grandparents' house, that actually was considered to be transient or homeless. Well, anyhow, that's a very disparaging story to hear. And seeing this, I try to figure out desperately, what can I do as someone who cares a great deal about my district and the people that I serve? This could be an opportunity. My mind began quickly to start realizing that what you do needs a lot of power to be successful. And my district provides that power, and we've done so for a very, very long time. So I will tell you, very selfishly, I came back to the States and got my committee together and started working very hard at trying to accelerate your opportunities to come into Kentucky, because I was hoping they would re-energize the coal fields and bring a lot of these families back to work. Because to make power, you need a reliable and affordable fuel source, and coal is that. Well, to some degree, it did just that. We saw some opportunities. Right now, we're actually having a little bit of bump in the coal market for those of you in the mining areas of the United States. And so it did, but that's really not a long-term solution. For those of us that have lived in the coal fields our whole life, we always understood that coal is the bridge to get us to this new future where you have renewables that are actually scalable and reliable and dependable. Now, we're not there yet. And so to knock the bridge out behind us before we get across is why you're finding a lot of pushback from areas around this country, around the world, around the United States, of coal mining areas that don't feel like we've achieved that goal yet. And so, as we plan going forward, it took a lot of work from us at the local and state level to come up with the answer to how can we bring you here and find a balance between the mining and what's environmentally productive for us. So, the coal company shut down. I'm flying home, and back in the coal mines, if you've ever been around one, you're going to see a lot of electrical gear. You're going to see a lot of transmission lines. You're going to see a lot of meters. You're going to see high speed. No, actually, one of the neat things is we have the meters and all the electrical gear on site with the mines that are shut down, and people may not realize. But a coal mine, in full operation, can use as much power as a small city. So they use a lot of power even though they create it. All of these things to you as an investor, that's exactly what you're looking for. All these things that you're trying to find, the locations that you want to come to, Kentucky has. And so in the meantime, we had put almost $1 billion investment in high-speed internet. When you couple those things together, you too can see as well as I, you begin to check off the boxes of what it takes to be successful in the type of field that you are in. So here we are with an opportunity. We've got an idea, we've connected the dots, we have power and abundance of it, we've got a great workforce. How do you make this happen? Well, in the States, because we're the government, each state decides the rules and regulations for the most part of how they operate, I had to take this idea in front of my committee. So I took this idea to be able to create and incentivize a program to encourage crypto mining responsibly in the state of Kentucky, specifically in the coal fields where we had such job loss. Now, this was all the way back in 2016. So in your mind, try to go back to 2016 and imagine talking to your grandparents about this industry. It's very difficult. As I talk to the main members of my committee, the average age is 70 plus. A lot of people had never heard of it, they had no idea what it was. And I'm trying to explain to somebody exactly what this can do. Just imagine trying to explain to somebody what an application to specify an integrated circuit is to somebody that doesn't have email. It's not an easy task. And so, but we did it. I think one of the greatest success stories that we had is that we took the time, one-on-one, to walk members through a complicated, ever-changing policy and legislation to get them comfortable enough to take a vote. Now, here's the problem with complicated pieces of legislation like tax reform or even this, is that if we're in this room right now for just a moment, each of you are an elected official for your district, your town, your state, your city, and you cast a vote in here today with me that you feel is the right thing to do. What you have to face is the gauntlet outside. As soon as you walk out the door, the media will run up to you and say, you just voted yes on this bill, and you're going to increase funding here, or there's going to be maybe a tax increase, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of times people get uncomfortable and they can't answer that question if you push them. So what happens is they vote no. The easiest answer is vote no. Stand up in the hallway when the media comes up on you, simply say something canned like, I didn't see enough information there, we need to do further studies. It sounds great and wonderful, but is it a way of making progress? It's not. So we wanted to make sure that our members could walk out the hallway and explain a very complicated piece of legislation. And so we went back to the board of a piece of legislation we had a long time ago. In the United States, a lot of states have old programs that they rolled out in the 60s and 70s, 80s, 90s, all to generate and spur economic development. The problem with them is nobody ever took them up on it. They sat through other books, and now we have some member will get up and give a fiery speech about what he did back in his day and how great it was. But if you take the time and look into it, no business ever came from the incentives that they put down. So that led me to my next step. It's getting a piece of legislation that my members had already seen, something that people were familiar with. And so we went back to 2007, and in 2007, we had an old bill that was laying around. Give me just a second here and I'll tell you the name of it. Let's see. At that time, that bill was called the Investment in Energy Act. And so, as we looked at what this particular act did in 2007, the meat and potatoes were there, it's just the timeline was different. So I had to be able to take this and channel it into a new opportunity for Kentucky. And I think a lot of you have probably seen what we did with Senate Bill 255. Many of you read it, we've had a lot of input from it, and that was our chance to take out the old dated program, the Energy Independence Act of 2007, retool it for a much more modern approach and a more thoughtful approach in recruiting technological companies just like you to bring investment in the state. And so to keep it from just being squandered or falling apart, we put it on a capital investment over $1 million. And if you have not seen this particular bill, it is worth your effort to go through and look it up. But before we could get there, I actually had to create an office under the Governor's Office of Technology to look at what blockchain did and how it worked. So with a two-pronged approach to looking at the blockchain side and the cryptocurrency side, you watch Kentucky leapfrog ahead of the other states. Just last week before I left, Kentucky is now getting into the crypto asset management on the banking side. You'll see us doing some special interest depositories and other aspects for Kentucky that are going to continue to lead the way. There's an ongoing debate among many of us in the General Assembly. Not every state produces energy, and not every state has the opportunities and locations and the electric gear on the ground, or the right is or not deployable, not readily available, and the type of speed that you need to have it done. So one of the theories is, if your state right now that does not have any legislation already on your books, I think the time for use probably already passed. Because to pass a piece of legislation in the state is very complicated, and it's a very long, drawn-out process that can take up to 3, 4 to 5 years. I'm going to guess that people in here that are investing don't want to wait that long in order to get a package together for your company to be able to thrive. The process for a bill is you have to get it drafted, and then the drafting has to go through and make sure that there's no other conflicts with other laws inside the state. Then you have to get the bill onto the floor of the Senate. You have to get it assigned to a committee. All this stuff takes time, readings. Once you get it into a committee, and I'm lucky I'm a chairman, I can bring my own bill straight to it, but if not, you have to wait in line. Once your bill gets to the committee, and everybody gets to have their say about it, somebody may amend it, or you may find a flaw in the language, and you have to do a committee substitute. All this stuff takes time. Once it's voted out of the committee, you finally get it to the Senate floor, it has to have its readings. And this sounds just like a big ball of bureaucracy, but this is how it works. Then you get it to the floor, and you get your vote. That's just the beginning. You're only halfway finished. Then you have to send it over to the House, and then you got to get the speaker to post it. Then it has to get assigned to a committee. And I'm not making this up. Then the committee has to be able to have a hearing. And then if anybody changes in the hearing, you have to do another committee substitute. And once the committee substitute is done, it goes back to the House floor, and then you have debate. Now, if the bill passes without any changes, there's a certain parliamentary procedure we can do, which is called the clincher. You can send it straight on to the governor's office. That doesn't happen very often. So any change in any part of that whole process sends it back to the start. That's why the argument about whether other states have missed the boat is very valid. I'm not sure that they can catch up with the needs and what's in the interest of your companies and your investment and time to help you. So I really feel like if they've not already gotten legislation on the books, then they're never going to catch Kentucky. So keep that in mind when you think about that investment. So Kentucky has pushed ourselves out to the ground, and we've been looking ahead as far as what we think our investments for you and your interest are. And we're trying to put ourselves in your spot, the things that your industry has to have, whether you're the person that has the ASICs, or whether you're the investor, or the silent partner, or the person that has to go outside and energy contracts. We try to look at it from all angles. And one of the things that I applaud Kentucky for doing is that we have done a great job of staying ahead of the curve on this. Now, it's no shock to anybody in here that there's a lot of money to be made in this industry, am I right? And so government loves industries that make money because they like to be able to get their hands on it. It's not exactly something we want, but nonetheless, we would be remiss if we didn't think that somewhere down the line you're going to see maybe an aggressive policy from the federal level that's going to start trying to figure out where they can tax you. Up here it's probably going to be more difficult, so they're going to probably have to cut down to where it's fine. So what do you do to offset that? And that's really the topic of what I'm here today to talk to you about. Is you offset that by being able to have carbon zero power. That is where the real game is going to come into play. And there's several different ways to skin this cat, as people say. You can still take off the grid and buy the credits, which is expensive. You can advertise that you're net zero, but you're really not. That you can still function along until the government closes that loophole. But what if I told you there's another way? Now, renewables they're not going to go away, but they're still very problematic. But there is one that in all my years of serving in this capacity, I will tell you, I'm extremely impressed with. And that is a large-scale gasifier. And the reason I like the concept of the gasifier is that you have a chance with the gasifier to kill I guess a couple of targets with one stone, as they say. And that is, I want you to make money, and I want you to make money in Kentucky, and I want you to make money quickly with a good sound investment. But I also want to create jobs, and I want us to be able to use the power in this region to employ people and drive our data centers. But what if we could do something beyond that? What if we had the unique opportunity through the gasifier of cleaning up landfills that are older than your grandparents? And instead of having landfills buried in tracks that leach out into the water and the environment and the soil, what if we're able to go back and remine these and process these through a gas environment, zero emissions, tons of clean power, start dealing with the garbage issues that large-scale cities have, instead of having this stuff buried or shipped out to some other place in another area or another state. You can deal with this stuff at home and generate a lot of power, protect your investment from federal regulation in the future, and be able to win on all sides of this argument, with the side effect of actually helping people in Appalachia break what's called embedded cyclical poverty. I think this will be one of the greatest challenges of what this industry can do. Now, people get into industries for a lot of reasons. To get in to make money. I want you to make money. Like I said, I think less government instead of more is more effective for us. But in this particular instant in time, we've got a unique opportunity because of a thoughtful approach and future investment in Kentucky to let you do all of these things and do something to help the human condition across Appalachia that no other government's ever been able to do before. And what I like about it is this is not a government solving the problem for us. This is local business people, business investment people helping us solve a very, very difficult problem on their own. Now, as I close up here on my time, I just want to say to you, remember this. In less than 3 years, Kentucky will have the highest hash rate of any other state in the United States of America. So if you take anything away, I want you to realize that when you put your money somewhere, I know what that means to you. That's the bread and butter of your operation. So I say to you as I wrap up, be wise and invest where you have a partner that appreciates the investment and has a long-term plan. Thank you again for allowing me to come and speak with you. I will be around for further questions. And again, I do apologize that we're not able to go into more detail on some of these issues, but I appreciate the time today. Thank you, Jim.